Braja Janaranjana Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Chihira Vanachari Vanachari Yamuna Chihira Vanachari Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari Radha Madhava Punjabi Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari Radha Madhava Hari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, Chapter 16. King Chitraketu meets the Lord. And this is text 58. Labdveha manusim yonim. Labdveha manusim yonim. Jnana vijnana sambhavam. Jnana vijnana sambhavam. Atmanam yona buddhyeta. Atmanam yona buddhyeta. Na kvachit kshemam apnuyat. Jnana vijnana sambhavam. Na kvachit kshemam apnuyat. Labdveha manusim yonim. Jnana vijnana sambhavam. Atmanam yona buddhyeta. Na kvachit kshemam apnuyat. Manusim yonim. Labdveha manusim lonim. Jnana vijnana sambhavam. Atmanam buddhyeta. Na kvachit kshemam apnuyat. Labdveha manusim yonim. Jnana vijnana sambhavam. Atmanam yona buddhyeta. Na kvachit kshemam apnuyat. Labdva, achieving. Iha, in this material world. Especially in this pious land of Bharatvarsh, India. Manusim, the human. Yonim, species. Jnana, of knowledge through Vedic scriptures. Vijnana, and practical application of that knowledge in life. Sambhavam, wherein there is a possibility. Atmanam, one's real identity. Yaha, anyone who. Na, not. Buddhyata, understands. Na, never. Kvachit, at any time. Kshemam, success in life. Apnuyat, can attain, obtain. Translation: a human being can attain perfection in life by self-realization through the Vedic literature and its practical application. This is possible especially for a human being born in India, the land of piety. A man who obtains birth in such a convenient position but does not understand his self is unable to achieve the highest perfection, even if he is exalted in life in the higher planetary systems. In response, please. A human being can attain perfection in life by self-realization through the Vedic literature and its practical application. This is possible especially for a human being born in India, the land of piety. A man who obtains birth in such a convenient position but does not understand his self is unable to achieve the highest perfection, even if he is exalted to a life in the higher planetary systems. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. This statement is confirmed in Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Leela 9:41. Lord Chaitanya said, Bharata Bhumite Hoila Manushya Janma Jar, Janma Sarkata Kari Kara Para Upaka. Everyone born in India, especially as a human being, can achieve the supreme success through the Vedic literature and its practical application in life. When one is perfect, he can render a service for the self-realization of the entire human society. This is the best way to perform humanitarian work. Om Gyantimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Pastacha Deshatarine. Labveha manasim yonim jnana vijnana sambhavam atmanam yona buddhyeta nakvajit shema apnuyat. A human being can attain perfection in life by self-realization through the Vedic literature and its practical application. This is possible especially for a human being born in India, the land of piety. A man who obtains birth in such a convenient position but does not understand his self is unable to achieve the highest perfection, even if he is exalted to life in the higher planetary systems. So in the Brahma Samhita it says, Advaitam Achutam Anadi Ananta Rupam Ajam Purana Purusham Navayovanam Cha Vedeshu Durlabam Adurlabam Atma Bhakto Govindamari Purusham Tamaham Bhajam. So Vedeshu Durlabam Adurlabam. So here in Brahma Samhita it's making a point through the Vedic literature. But it's easy to understand by the Bhakta. So there's no dichotomy, because Vedic literatures have to be understood by the proper process. It's not just by application of one's intelligence, because everybody's got a different degree of analytical intelligence, ability to understand philosophy like that. but it's actually revealed within the heart. Tesham sattva yuktanam bhajatam purikam vidadi buddhiyogam tam yena mamupiyante. What really pushes Krishna to reveal it is the mood of the devotee, the attitude of the devotee. Krishna's just looking for the right attitude, and that's the most important thing, to see whether we've actually understood the message. If it changes our perception and our attitude, then the Vedic literature is working. But if it doesn't, and we just understand it externally, we won't understand anything actually. We'll understand. This is why Prabhupada said, there's so many people more elevated in the Shastras than I am. He says, compared to my godmother, I'm a minnow. I don't really have the same ability to understand philosophy or preach it. And in this respect, he especially referred to Sridhar Swami. He was a very close associate of Prabhupada, but he was also very realized. And so Prabhupada made that point that it's because I understood the mood of my spiritual master, and I did my best to actually preach. And he says this is actually my only reason for success, is I didn't change anything and I followed the instructions. That's why Prabhupada was so happy when he read a commentary by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur about the second verse 41, 42, 41, about Vyasa Udaya Vyavisayinam. He said that Bahu Shaka, a person who's got no spiritual master, then he'll actually be free to speculate to his heart's content, and but that means that we won't actually come to the conclusion. And Prabhupada saw that Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur said that if you to understand this verse, we have to understand the mood of the spiritual master, the mood of the devotee that we're actually taking shelter of. And then we can understand the purport and apply the purport of Shastra in our lives with success. And Prabhupada did that. And this is what Krishna is looking for. Krishna is Sarvasya Chaham Hridi Sanivishto Matak Smriti Gyanam Opahanam Cha Ved Sarvam Ham Eva Vidya Vedantakrit Ved Ved Eva Chaham. It is both in that purport. Prabhupada especially starts to speak about how Krishna reveals knowledge from within the heart. And then halfway through the purport he says, but what about the Vedas? I thought the Vedas were supposed to reveal knowledge in the heart. And then Prabhupada starts to elaborate on the importance of understanding the Vedas through disciplic succession. So this is it's the realized soul who can actually teach us, because he's actually put it into practice. I gave an example the other day about when I was doing an apprenticeship. We learned so much theory, and it was like, how do we apply it? And then when we put practically, one day a week we went to technical college. Probably Titikshur remembers that. They called it day release, and then the other 4 days we worked, practically. And so when we actually worked in that vein, we could really understand, the actual process. So the same is true in devotional service. That we need, they say Vani is important, don't they? Of the two, and Vapu. But without Vapu, it's very difficult to understand. We need that practical guidance, and then we can, when we see it at work, what's the problem? But if we try to theorize, then so many problems. So it's durlabham just by Vedic literature, but by association with the Bhakta, adurlabham, it becomes very easily. very easy. So, satam prasangam mama viri samvido. So Bhagavatam explains in the third canto, Lord Kapila explains the process of devotional service is actually understood through hearing in the association of devotees, especially those who are actually more advanced. He says, then the heart becomes purified in that way. And one's devotional service becomes more and more spontaneous. So that's one particular point which is stressed here, that Narada Muni, Vyasadeva, it says here that about the Vedic literatures, Narada Muni, Vyasadeva, he actually compiled all the Vedas. And still, as we know, he wasn't actually, there's something wrong here, I put so much effort into trying to, present something valuable for society, but I don't feel satisfied. And he had a feeling what it was, Bhagavatam explains. But then his spiritual master came, at the same point, and he said to him, my dear Prabhu, are you satisfied by, looking at things through your mind and intelligence? And he was actually mocking him. He said, my dear Prabhu. And Vyasadeva immediately understood that, he hadn't explained about the process of devotional service sufficiently. He'd explained to some degree, but not about the personal relationship or the activity of service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And so when we actually explain things on that level, then, devotional service becomes meaningful. Why? Because Krishna is a person. And to learn to serve a person, we have to learn to serve his associates who are also persons. And when that reciprocation is correct, then we become qualified for entering into the spiritual world. The whole point is to bring us to that point where we can Bhakti Bhagavatam devotional service, then, proper execution means the heart becomes purified. And then when the heart becomes purified, we can, Bhagavad Gita says, 6th chapter, that we're automatically connected to Krishna. For a yoga, it's talking about jhana yoga in the 6th chapter. It's talking about being connected to the super soul if we control the mind. But for a devotee, I remember actually, Shri Maharaj asked Prabhupada, he says, who's in the heart for a devotee, Prabhupada? Is it the super soul, or is it And so, anyway, so Narada Muni instructed Vyasadeva, and Vyasadeva then was started with the task of then splitting the Vedas and elaborating on the relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And so this is our ongoing process. It's not like we can present what Vyasadeva presented. I remember once I was going door to door in Manchester, and I used, it was Sunday morning. You usually go a little bit later on Sunday morning because everybody's like, they're getting up at like 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. And I went to this door, and this man came. It was a good area as well. It was a rich area. And at that time, Krishna Dharma was writing The Harmonist. We didn't distribute so many books because we didn't have much money. So he used to write The Harmonist. And we were saving up for to build not to build, but to have a restaurant. And so this particular, they were good actually. They were really good. But this one, he wrote an article by Sataputa. And I went to this person's door and he said, he says, I'm just having my breakfast. He says, come back in half an hour. And he said, give me that Harmonist, give me that, what you got there. I'll have a read at that while I'm taking. And then I went back after, probably about an hour, give him, and he says, I don't know how anybody's going to understand that. He said, they were typical, working class man like. And so it's like that. It's not just a matter of presenting things, the way we've actually accepted them necessarily, but learning the art of understanding the essence of what we've learned and presenting the essence in a suitable way and that'll be for the audience, and that'll be changing. It's already changing. We can't preach like we did 20, 25 years ago. The preaching's always changing according to time, place, and circumstance. And Prabhupada made that point that he says, my God, brothers, he says they've got no intelligence. He says they're still presenting the books of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So Prabhupada expected us to, be thoughtful about how we present this philosophy in a suitable way. And now, what's the chief way we present it now? What's leading the field? I know books are there. Books are always, but it's like yoga sessions, isn't it? People come through indirectly. They're interested in yoga, and then gradually they can become a little bit interested when they take prasadam in the deeper aspects of yoga, and then Krishna consciousness, like that. We've got one now. WhatsApp. WhatsApp's a really good preaching tool. You've got your mobile, and on the mobile it's got a QR code facility. So you put, you start a WhatsApp group, you put a QR facility, it's on your phone, and when you meet people, you don't have to give them a thing, you don't have, a leaflet, you don't have to, tell them to visit the website, which probably they won't anyway. I'll give them a card with a website on. He just said, well, you can join this group and you can get the latest information on this. And, 99%, you just, okay, boom, and they're on. And then you can put what you want on there. And one good thing to put on is wisdom of the sages. You don't even have to preach. You just, it's like a laid-back program. And, they have a good laugh at the beginning of it. Raghunath, he usually cracks a few jokes. So, people can relate to that. And then they start reading from the Bhagavatam. But it's not like in a formal way like this. It's like in a really laid-back way. And so people can start to really understand this this process gradually through that. And then, at the weekend, you can advertise. We'll be carrying on with this conversation at our Saturday program we have. And, we get a few people coming along, and we can take it further. Mostly kirtan and a little bit of philosophy, some nice prasadam. So that's one way and it talks about, Pritiviti Achiyat Nagaradigram. This is about Sarvachara Haibe Moranam. Oh no, that's the wrong one, isn't it? Bharati Bhumati Hoyle Manasi Janmaja, this one. So it's talking about, those who were actually born in the land of Bharat. But actually, I mentioned this, I went to Namhati last night, I mentioned this point about, I started hearing the Journey Home again. I'd read it like 5 or 6 years ago. And, it was really, really interesting, exciting. But then I thought, I can listen to that while I'm doing other things, taking prasadam or going for a walk. And so I started listening to it. And actually, it's, there's so much philosophy there that I missed the first time. But one thing that struck me is that in India, when Maharaj was actually meeting different, transcendentalists, it struck me that, actually these transcendentalists, some of them, they've got so much mystic power. And they exhibited that. But I thought, actually, none of them come close to a devotee. Because at that point, he met so many people, but nobody actually clearly understood what the absolute truth was. Who was the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, we tend to take this process a little bit for granted after we've been practicing it for some time. But it's a very, very elevated process. And there are very elevated souls in this particular process. And so I felt a little bit of, comfort that all I have to do now is actually just apply it nicely. Everything's laid on a plate. And not only that, I can actually give it to others. If I apply it nicely, then I'll be potent to help others also take up the process. Yeah, so, we were talking about different processes of applying the philosophy, applying the process and giving it to others. And, main thing is that, our acharyas, the 6 Goswamis, they actually did all the whole hard work. Yes, so many Vedic scriptures. Vyasadeva divided them into 4 and gave them to 4 acharyas, 4 masters of that particular art. And then they were divided into, subsections. And then, also there was Smriti. Smriti was added by Shukadeva Goswami, like that, Srimad Bhagavatam. And now, that's actually been, even by Lord Chaitanya's mercy, that's been even more refined. So, He Kali Kali Adanahe Vaishnava. The only thing we need to read is the only association we need is the Vaishnavas and the Vaishnava Shastras. And that's it. Is that it? That's it. But does anybody argue over Shastra? Big arguments over Shastra. Sometimes the movement looks as if it's going to split. And so, I probably you're all aware, but there's, that such the Vaishnava Shastra, that's a Shastra Advisory Committee. There's Urmila on there, Urmila Devidasi, Narayani Maharani, one Russian devotee, a real boffin. Anyway, there's quite a few on it. Bhakti Vigyan Maharaj is like a support to that. And so they actually brought out a book or a process called, no, they didn't bring it out, the process already existed. And it's a process that the sages used in bygone ages, and it's still used to some degree. If you notice in India, when they discuss Shastra, they don't start fighting on a heap and, it looks like things are going to split up. If we read Chaitanya Chaitamrita, even somebody as proud as Keshavi Kashmiri, and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, they argue on certain principles with Lord Chaitanya. And when they were defeated, they just accepted his path. But it's not easy to accept somebody else's point of view. And so they brought out this book called Hermeneutics. And basically what it means is that you argue according to logic and certain criteria. And when you argue according to that criteria, and when you're actually performing proper sadhana, then we can start to understand Shastra in a collective way. At least to some degree. It said we won't understand everything. Some things will remain a mystery. but at least we've got a basis for making sure that we appreciate. First of all, we appreciate other people's point of view, and we actually present Shastra without undue argument. So that's called Vad. In Bhagavad Gita, I forget what he actually says, Krishna, but he says, of logical arguments, I am Vad, in the 10th canto. And the other two, which are described, Jalpa. So Jalpa means that I'm going to win this argument if it's the last thing I do. You're working from Shastra to win the argument. But it means that, you do more talking than hearing. And that usually finishes up in big argument. And the last one is called Vitanda. And that means that, you don't care what you need to do, you're going to defeat this other person. Whatever you have to do, you're going to defeat him. It says, so there may be some, we maybe have some realization of that. And, but we have to come to the platform of, and it's quite a science. It's quite a science. There's so many things you have to put into practice until they become natural. And then you can actually start to function properly in discussing Shastra. Tarko Pratishta Shrutaya Vibhina. So, the Shastras are many branched. Nasavrishi Yasha Nataba Nabinam. And, different transcendentalists have different opinions. I forget the verse. Anyway, at the end it says that, therefore, the solid truth about religious principles is Mahajana Yedena Gata Sapanta. It's locked in the heart of the pure devotee. Okay. So then I was going to talk about, he talks about, devotees who take their birth in the land of India are qualified to spread this movement all over the world because, it took lifetimes of, practice of spiritual life. Well, maybe not lifetimes, but usually lifetimes. According to Bhagavad Gita, it's lifetimes. What does it say in Bhagavad Gita? Yesham twantagatam papam ginanam punyakamanam tirdan va nichamir nirmukta vajantimam dridavrata. It says those who practiced previously and, they're free from material concept, they practice with determination, then they can actually proceed on the path of devotional service with determination. Pious activities, spiritual piety, not ordinary piety. In Srimad Bhagavatam, Lord Brahma is talking about the position of the cowherd boys. He talks about piety. They've advanced you to piety. What's he say? I can't remember the verse now. But he says, Krita Punya Punya. Krita means meritorious. Punya means pious activity. He says, how many people can understand that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is playing with, or there are boys playing with the Supreme Personality of Godhead as a cowherd boyfriend. Who can understand this? Some people understand the Lord as in awe and reverence, as Vishnu. Some people worship, some people are on the materialistic platform thinking that material acquisitions are all in all. So once again, it's stressing that important process of association. And so whether we're born in India or whether we're born in, in Falkirk or somewhere like that, that's near Lesmehego. The real criteria is that Not one's birth, but one's qualification. So we can stop there. We've got to stop a little early because everybody's got a full day. And has anybody got any comments? Oh.
It's really interesting to hear different ways of preaching and how things you need that? Yes, interesting to hear different ways that we can preach according to the places are the same, but it's the time and the circumstances which is different. But my experience in Liverpool was that however you present Krishna consciousness, or whichever way you use, that's how people will accept it. For instance, we had one program which we started, the Bhakti Vriksha program, and we started it on a separate day from the Sunday Feast program. Because we had these people coming for many, many years on the Sunday Feast program with their plastic boxes and so many different things. And they didn't really want to take Krishna consciousness any further than that. So to start the Bhakti Vriksha program, I just announced that we'd do it on a separate night for those who want to, take Krishna consciousness further. And so a few of them came, 2 or 3, and then a new person who'd just come to the Sunday Feast that day, they came. And they took to Bhakti Vriksha straight away, because it's whatever you tell people Krishna consciousness is, then they accept it. And I noticed that if a particular temple is into food for life, then everyone accepts or gets into food for life. If another temple is into book distribution, everyone comes in and like that. So it's kind of, it's interesting. I think once Prabhupada said, however you want to spread Krishna consciousness, it will be successful, because you have that enthusiasm to present it in a particular way. So it's unlimited in that sense. So it's very interesting. It's nice to hear about the WhatsApp groups that you're doing. So in a war, you've got to push on all fronts. But one thing about book distribution, about the hardback book, is that it can last a lot longer than what you've got on your USB stick or your device. I mean, once there's no electricity or there's no internet, then what are you going to do? You're going to try and break open your hard drive and read the Bhagavatam or something, But the hardback book is totally independent of anything else. A government could just flick a switch and turn the internet off if they want to censor a particular scripture or something. And they do it. In China, they turn off particular websites, that are not conducive to what their philosophy is. So it's interesting. But you can't go around and take books out of everybody's home. If there's a set of books in every house, it's hidden away. How is a government or whatever going to do that? So from my conclusion is that the hardback book is is the most powerful preaching tool we've got for longevity. But still, everything else should go on. So it's really interesting to sort of think about how we can present Krishna consciousness. And how to. Prabhupada actually said we should rack our brains how to spread this movement. So it's very, very nice. Thank you.
Yeah, that's right. We have to keep pushing on all fronts. That's the point. Some people will be ready for it straight away, but there'll be others who, are at the other end of the scale. So, the Vedic literatures provide information for everybody, how they can gradually come to the point of accepting Bhakti Yoga. And so we have to see what the audience, what their success rate is. And people, what I've seen most of the time is if you present philosophy, and maybe, Indians may be into it. They may have been brought up by and at least maybe visiting the temple, hearing the sadhu speak for a while. So it's part of their makeup. But with Westerners, if a lot of them are, there's a big turnover anyway. But at least, you have to, I think the main thing is that they feel in a situation they feel comfortable in. And then friends, they make friends. And then, at some point, the philosophy is also there and prasadam to some degree, the philosophy to some degree. But then when there's some camaraderie and some friendship, then things progress relatively quickly. And, in a standard temple program, that's the standard for an Indian already. They've already got the friends have brought them most of the time. It's like a closed group in a lot of cases. And so we had to create to another group, another program, so that can be actually also created with Western devotees. It may not be necessary, but it seems like at the moment that was what required. And, the temple management are all right with it. So there'll be so many ways to preach. Krishna Dharma, I don't really tell you a story, when he first heard about Krishna consciousness, he'd just been on the Mediterranean with his girlfriend, smoking dope and trying to find, some satisfaction in life. And then he came back completely, feeling the opposite. And so he thought they were thumbing a lift and this van pulled up, and they got in. And it was a devotee, and he started preaching to them. And they were lapping it up. I thought, wow, this is what I've been looking for. And they were talking about the 4 regulative principles and, no intoxication. And then after some time, I said, he nudged me and said, have you got a joint? And he thought, why is he asking me for a joint? He's just talking about, And so he did. He gave him one. And he put it away on this joint. And he carried on preaching. He took him straight to the Bhaktivedanta manor, and he never left. So, I mean, we shouldn't follow that example, but it just shows that when people are ready for it, it don't matter how it's presented. But hard books, books are we're trying to get them to take a book as well. We're just starting with a higher taste first, get them into vegetarianism, and then take it from there.
I wasn't suggesting that our book distribution is just focused on the philosophy side, because we have so many books which are really inspirational for people who are not philosophers. There's the Leelamrita, Science of Self-Realization, Coming Back, Chant Be Happy, Higher Taste. Half of that is preaching about the principles of vegetarianism. And so I think also Krishna book. I got Krishna book from the library in 1974. I read it was just some Indian stories. I thought, oh, okay, some mystic Indian stories. What's this? So I read it, and I thought, these stories are so far out that a man could not have written these. They're beyond the imagination of some guy in the material world with some pea brain. These had to have come from a higher source. So still, the books are the forefront of our preaching. For instance, the hardback book can last over 500 years. In 1435, they printed 180 copies of the Bible. It was the first book printed in Germany, Gutenberg Press.
Luther, right?
Yeah, the Lutheran Bible. And so today, 40 of those 180 copies are still in existence in either churches, museums, or private collections. So that shows the hardback book, it can last, at least 500 years. So that means when you distribute a book, it can go on preaching for 500 years after you leave your body.
You just have to be careful that they get the right book to the right person. That's all.
Yeah.
I remember when I was going door to door. I've told this story before. I called to Wonder and he invited me and he took a book. And then a few months later, I went on my rounds and he invited me again. He took another book. And a few months later, I went around and he took a book. And he just was looking at me as I opened. I remember his face as he opened the door. He said, "Wait there a minute." He went back inside and he got the book. And he was just looking me straight in the eye. I said, "I can't read a book where a bloke's got 4 heads." And that was it. It was just too much for him. But he was an engineer, and he couldn't actually get his head around it.
But even if they touch the book or see the book, they're directly touching the spiritual world. So they get some benefit. And books are like deities anyway. If we accept they're non-different from Krishna, then they're a deity. And deities have their leela. And many times we give a book, it's not for that person. It gets passed on and, it has its leela. Yeah. It might lie on a shelf for 50 years, and someone picks it up. And so we don't know. But one thing for certain is that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta and Srila Prabhupada both stressed on the Brihat Mridanga. So when the previous two acharyas are making a very profound point that we should focus on the book distribution, then it's a very serious consideration like that. So I mean, books can, say a book lasts 500 years, it could go through, that's 20 generations. Let's say it reaches 4 people in each generation. Then I was calculating at the book warehouse, Soho took 2 pallets of the Shastradhan Gita, the little orange one. I said 2,000 books. So I said to them, okay, so these books have a potential to last maybe 500 years. So can we sort of think about that? What does that mean? How can we visualize that? So I said, okay, so 2,000 books times 4 people times 5 generations. Or so 20 generations. That's 5 generations per 100 years. So that's multiply that up. It's 180,000 people. So that one little transit van with 2 pallets of books had the potential to reach 180,000 people. So can we visualize that? Yes. The capacity of Wembley Stadium is 80,000. So it's twice the capacity of Wembley Stadium. So if we get those books out there, it's not that we're just giving it to one person. It's not that we're, that it just gets lost somewhere. Some will, but there is that potential to reach a huge amount of people through the Brihat Mridanga.
Okay. Thank you. Last question, it's past. Did you? Oh, yeah. Kantarod Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.